So as 2020 is about to end, I decided to go ahead and re-listen to Green Day's Father of All album, which is released like earlier in 2020. I think it was February, I believe, alright? So the reason why I decided to give it a second chance is because I remember listening to Warning, which is their sixth album, and how different it was from their previous albums. Basically, Green Day loves to experiment with their sound, and I was thinking that perhaps I could have been a little bit brutal, I guess, during my first review. I haven't actually listened to this album until today. I think the last time was like late August or early September, I believe. I made the review video where I gave it a 0 out of 10, and now at first I thought that it may have been too harsh, but I decided to go ahead and re-listen to it to kind of confirm if that was the case, okay? So I went ahead, and the mindset I got as I was listening to it again is basically like how if I were to hear this band for the first time. So taking away everything that I previously heard, like Revolution Radio or any other album, I was thinking maybe it could be good if I was not used to Green Day's old sound. Maybe I would appreciate it more. So here's my opinion when I listen to it again. Is this album any better on a second listen? Well, if that answer wasn't obvious enough, it's a no. I mean, like I said before, I'm a Green Day fan, and I so desperately wanted to like this album. Like I said before, I honestly this is the first album. Now that I think about it, it's the actual first album that I have not gone back to listen to in months. Like usually, with other albums, I think it was Revolution Radio. There were some production issues as well. Like there were some parts of the audio was too loud, or I guess some were too soft, but either way, the songs were catchy enough that I was able to go back and re-listen to them. Now, with this album, however, I didn't get that same urge. So basically, it's like I had to force myself to listen to it again because, as I said before, I really wanted to like this album as it's been produced by my favorite band, but unfortunately, my opinion remains the same, and I'm gonna go ahead and first talk about the vocals this time because that is probably one of my main issues with this whole album.
This guy moaned at least this loud. Oh!
I mean, the first time I heard it, I know that they want to kind of do this falsetto, falsetto type of sound. They want to kind of grab influences, from other genres and kind of, splice them into one album, but the only result of this is a disjumbled mess, and it would be okay if the production was any half decent, but unfortunately no. It's like how you throw away your years of good reputation and decide to throw a big fat turd into your audience. I mean, I tried to honestly, I think the only actual track in this whole album that sounds anything that resembles old Green Day is probably Sugar Youth, and despite the fact that it's clearly they're trying to get a Saint Jimmy type of sound from the American Idiot album, this unfortunately doesn't even, the guitars and everything, it's like they're just begging to be heard, you know what I mean? It's like you can clearly hear Billy trying to rock the guitar sound just like how they do in their live shows, to get the energy up and everything, but it's just begging to be heard. It's like the sounds are for a lack of a better term, suppressed. This actually applies to the entire album. So while I'm mainly talking about Sugar Youth because that is the closest thing to resemble anything like old Green Day, this applies to the whole album as well. Now, the vocals again, on some of the tracks, the vocals are better than others. But other than that, I don't like how they overproduce the vocals as well. If you notice Billy singing live with some of these songs, it does sound a bit better when it's being sung live. Again, it's still not good, but definitely better than the overproduced garbage that we were given. Another thing I would like to say that this album is actually 26 minutes long. 26 minutes only, and then despite that, it feels like an eternity. I mean, Revolution Radio, the first time I listened to it, I was hooked with Somewhere Now, Bang Bang, then Revolution Radio. I was just wow. I mean, I know the trilogy wasn't anything special, and to be honest with you, I'm actually a fan of the trilogy despite it being not overly negative per se, but kind of underrated from the Green Day community as well. I actually like some of the songs from the trilogy, so I never really got the hate for it overall. Maybe you could say wasted potential, but I wouldn't say it warrants all the hate that it got. And I would say that Revolution Radio, even then, was considered a good return to form. Maybe not as good as American Idiot. Well, even that is debatable because I actually liked a lot of the tracks. But either way, Revolution Radio was a great return to form, and it didn't feel too long, didn't feel dragged out. But this album, despite it being 26 minutes long, oh my god, I was like, I think by the third track, oh my god. And this is my opinion on my second listen. I'm not talking about the first time, this is me after listening to it again today. The third track, I was already feeling bored and I was just like, kind of like end it already, you know? And that has never happened to me even with the trilogy. Now, I may have skipped some of the songs, but I never felt like it dragged on in any of Green Day's old albums. This is the first album to do that for me. Like, that is how basically this album is lacking ambition. It's lacking the usual emotions as well. Like, in all their other albums, you can kind of feel the emotions that Billy Joe, with his vocals, the music as well, they're able to convey a very, very sentimental vibe in some of their songs, along with a playful type of vibe as well. Then that kind of like ramps your energy up. This album unfortunately does not do that. Even the Sugar Youth song, which can be considered fast, or Take the Money and Crawl, which, let's get into the lyrics too, because oh man, like the lyrics, let me put some on the screen right now for you, and then you can, I warn you, even for Green Day, I know they've written like immature lyrics before, but even for their standards, this is definitely one of the worst I have ever seen. Yep, that's what I'm saying. So those tracks in particular stand out. I mean, I was a teenager. It was a kind of a slow track, kind of like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, but done worse, I guess. Like, and I know, like, I really don't want to be hating on Green Day because, as I said before, they were a big influence in, like, they were actually one of the reasons why I started to learn guitar. Green Day, Blink-182, and Black Sabbath were my, well, actually Guns N' Roses also, they were my four bands that inspired me, but mostly Green Day and Blink-182. I was heavily into the punk rock scene at the time, and I still am, but I'm, even as a big fan, I know when to critique, and I know that this album unfortunately did not live up to my standards, even on a second listen. So we talked about the lyrics, talked about the overproduction being terrible. Well, let's go ahead and actually talk about the album cover, which pretty much summarizes, it feels like the album cover represents the quality of this album, and it is absolutely god awful. I mean, I'm gonna zoom in right now so you can see that, I mean, I know Billy or someone there, who thought that the unicorn was a good idea? And I mean, I am not exaggerating, this is actually how I genuinely feel right now. This album cover is an absolute mess. Like, how dare you disgrace the American Idiot album cover like that? Like, I definitely do not want to take my previous legacy or reputation and slander all over it with that. Like, I mean, I've seen like like I said before, I don't want to be overly negative, but I have seen like first graders, second graders do a better art job than this, whatever this is. Okay, so now when we talk about the actual like rhythm, let's talk about how catchy each song is. The only like songs are probably either Graffitia or Sugar Youth, and even then I have to force myself to listen to them because I don't want to hear that falsetto again, and also it's just like, it's lacking that, you know, the it factor that each other Green Day albums have. They have that kind of thing where they're enjoyable to listen to. Not in this album, unfortunately. And definitely another thing I'd like to discuss, the absolutely disgraceful advertising as well. Like, I mean, if I were to look at the actual, like, you know, the billboard, I actually have it on screen right now. Let's see what they were trying to advertise this garbage as. So, first one, no features, no Swedish songwriters. Well, should have probably hired some Swedish songwriters. I'm sure that the Swedish songwriters would have been able to produce better garbage than this. No trap beats. 100% pure uncut rock. Green Day, Father of All, is out now. I mean, like, as if we were to be excited for that. Honestly, I believe I said this in the other review, where I was thinking that it was kind of like a troll album, I guess. Even people on the Green Day subreddit were also thinking it was a troll album, to kind of piss off their record label, I believe it was, yeah. And unfortunately, I don't think so. I mean, like, that would have been the better option, so that I could actually pretend that Revolution Radio was still their last actual real album, I guess. But alas, what we were given in December 2020, well, just like, if this is the direction, okay, look, I know that I said I'm a big fan of Green Day experimenting with their sounds. I really am. I'm not like, I want to talk about the part where people would kind of like dog on the reviewers and say, you just don't like their new material, you're just hating on it just because it's new. No. I am a big fan of bands experimenting. Like, the people who say that bands should remain the same, their sound should not change or anything like that, I think they're just a bunch of crap. Like, the whole point of a band as it progresses is to evolve their sound. Now, they can't just keep, like releasing the same sound over and over and over, piggybacking on their previous success, and then it eventually growing old and uninspired. Like, that is what Green Day tried to do. Granted, they failed miserably, but at least they tried to experiment. So that's one thing I will defend them on. The one thing I cannot defend them on is that these guys who have produced a lot of great albums have decided to come up with this. And I mean, like, the advertising was cringy, the album cover, I cannot state more enough, it was really bad. That kind of like matches the quality of the album, and even the so-called best track, which probably is either Sugar Youth or Graffitia, I would not listen to them again unless I actually like forgot about them until I re-listened to the album, and that is the best of the album, and they still don't live up to the rest of the Green Day songs in general. So if this is the direction that the band is going in, I'll be honest with you, I don't honestly think that it's a direction that I'd be happy with, and if they continue producing garbage like this, I honestly don't think I'll listen to it. I'll just listen to their older music. Like, again, I don't want to sound like those boomers or anything that just love to hate on anything new, but I want to just like appreciate, like, let's say Revolution Radio, 21st Century Breakdown, American Idiot, Warning, like those albums, the relatively newer ones as well. I'm still a big fan of their albums. I'm just not a fan of this album. This is the album that in particular that really screwed up. Like, I mean, I really hope that if they were to release their next album, they could kind of give it a modern sound, but at the same time, it's like this album doesn't have any like distinct Green Day, like their style. They have a style, you can just tell. When a Green Day song comes on, you can tell, yep, that's Billy Joe singing, that's Green Day. But this album, with the exception of Sugar Youth and to an extent Graffitia, now I keep mentioning those two songs because they were like the only two tracks that I found as anything close to bearable. This album at the same time, it feels like a different band made it, and Green Day occasionally went in with those two tracks only. So, like, let's just hope that their next album, whenever they release it, wherever they release it, is a lot better. And so, to finish the question, is this album good on a second listen? Because I said before, I've already reviewed this one time. Unfortunately, no, my review still remains the same. Unfortunately, despite me not wanting to hate on it, but I really cannot appreciate this album despite giving it a second chance. So, thank you very much for watching. This is Green Day Father of All second review. I will see you in my next video. Raphael out.